know, I love Mexico. And part of the reason is that all the girls are really beautiful. And all the guys are pretty lame. So there's no competition. No. That was me. Let me talk about, let's see, here we go, a little history. And someday, computers will work. What we really want to do, nobody knows who these guys are. These are the guys whose shoulders I stood on. These are the guys that hooked a big computer up to a video screen. It's called Evans and Sutherland, and they were the pioneers. This was 1965. And what you're seeing there is less graphics processing than you have in your iPhone. RTL logic. So we've come a long ways. I worked at an amusement park. These guys were my professors at the university, getting a degree. And so I knew something about computer graphics, really early on. And then I worked at an amusement park. And so I knew the economics of fun. And I thought to myself, if I can put the technology that I have there and make it cheap so I could put it at the amusement park, I bet I could make a lot of money. Well, the computer at those times, that computer you saw, and that was the screen that I played Space War on. It was a game that was called, that was done by a guy named Steve Russell at MIT, 1962. Wow, when I say those ages, I don't feel that old, but I am. Anyway, this was a $3 million computer. This was a 200,000. It had 100 kilohertz. Man, that's blistering fast. Or not. This is actually the first video game. It's a guy named Willie Higginbotham who did a game using an oscilloscope in 1958. And it bounced across and they did some fun things. Then there was Computer Quiz. These were little coin-op games. That came along in the late 60s. And then, this was my game. This is the very first consumer video game. You thought it was Pong. It wasn't. This was my attempt to do Space Wars. The model was actually a stripper in a bar down the street. But that's a whole nother story. So, basically, started Atari. This was one of the first Atari things. Now, Al Alcorn, he was the guy that actually programmed Pong. That was me. There were two innovations there. One was the Pong game. The other was the polka dot shirt. The polka dot shirt did not catch on. But this was a guy who was our first financial guy who got caught stealing. But that's another thing. But anyway, that was our first brochure. And then Atari did more and more different and fun games. Have you ever played Simon? This was actually the coin-op version that was copied to do Simon. So, you know, when people copy your stuff, don't get mad at it. I did, but you know, it's just what happens. I mean, if you're going to, is Halo a copy of Doom? Kinda. But, you know, Doom, you know, Halo is a great game. Then 1977, the Atari VCS, we all remember that to a certain extent. But what you realize is that the first microprocessor wasn't invented until 1974, and it was only a 4-bit. Good for a little calculator. 1976 was the big day, and that was the 6502. And you recognize these guys? It's Jobs, Wozniak. They both worked for me. Well, actually, not both of them. Steve Jobs worked for Atari, and I put him on the night shift because he was good friends with Wozniak, who was actually a better engineer. And did you ever wonder why the Apple II was based on the 6502? It's because the Atari VCS was based on the 6502, and they could steal the parts. Actually, I gave them a bunch of them and let them buy 6502s. But also, the 6502 turned out to be the first really big mass-produced chip, or microprocessor. And because of that, the typical microprocessor in those days, they were like $80 to $100. We were buying the 6502 for $8. And so it was the cheapest microprocessor and the most powerful. And this is the game that Woz and Jobs did, Breakout. And as a result, it was the only game, and Jobs came to me and said, is it okay if we put Breakout on the Apple II? And I said, sure, no problem, you guys did it. And so the only game that was shipped with the Apple was Breakout, the first game. These guys really made a difference. And we were good friends for a long time. I'd written a book about finding the next Steve Jobs. And I talk about the time in Paris. This is a Dumago. This is a famous West Bank, Paris cafe, Hemingway and all those guys. And Steve Jobs and I drank coffee, he drank tea, and discussed the future of the computer world. This is after Apple was started, and creativity. And what a lot of people don't know about Steve is that he was maybe the most passionate, capable person you could ever find. In fact, and we decided these are the most important characteristics of success: enthusiasm, creativity, and optimism. So if you don't have it, get it. Love life. Love life. Love life. What you really want to be able to do is figure out a passion and do it. Now, how do you get good ideas? Get a lot of ideas. How do you get a lot of ideas? Do a lot of things. Walk to work or school a different way. Look for beauty in weird places. Pack as much life into every hour, every minute as you can. Be curious. Be curious about weird businesses. What do you know about canning food? What do you know about making shoes? What do you know about installing carpet? What do you know about fishing? What do you know about writing a novel? What do you know about being an actor? What do you know about being a director? How many computer languages do you know? If you can't say yes to everything that I listed, you're not going to have good ideas because you don't have a broad enough level of experience. Now, youth, by definition, doesn't have a lot of experiences. But you can sure as heck pack a lot more into your life than you're currently doing. And I just want to encourage you to do so. Think about things in a different way. Is the coin-operated game arcade dead? Most people say pretty much, yeah. Everything goes around, comes around. Turns out that I just saw a game center that matches a story and games. So you go into the first room and you hear about this problem and you have to save the space station. In order to get on the space station, you have to get through the laser maze. Then you do all kinds of other things using glasses and various other items. People say, what is the future of the video game business? Well, it turns out the future of the video game business is different. It's going to be different. Like, I just did that, didn't I? I did that to myself. Okay. Sorry. Those speakers are cheap. You can replace them. Anyway, and I completely lost my train of thought. What was I talking about? Oh, the future. Yeah, let's talk about that. It's easy to forget the future. We're so stuck in today. But it turns out that geo-aware games might be the next big thing. And what does that mean? You don't realize it, but there is another dimension, right, that overlays this dimension perfectly. There are evil monkeys in that other dimension. You cannot see them except through your device. The evil monkeys will mess with you unless you get rid of them. You didn't know you had that problem. But giving the world an opportunity to get rid of the evil monkeys may just make you $1 million. You know, because getting rid of a problem that people that didn't know they had, that's an old trick. I mean, there are so many products that we didn't know we wanted until they were advertised to us. What about the whole idea? What is the next Minecraft? What is a building game that can be collaboratively worked on? You know, where 1 million people are working on the same world. What about this? What if we have capture the flag? wondering if I think I probably didn't keep punching this enough. I was just riffing off, and anyway, okay, we're going to do capture the flag. Half of the world is on one team, half of the world is on the other. We have television stations that are flying over the battlefield. Now think of World of Warcraft. Now you think of 10 million people on one side, 10 million on the other. And at 9 o'clock on a Friday night, everybody gets together in games, all in the same world. I want to do that. What about this whole idea of the TV set being the best opportunity, the best game player? And how does that happen? Well, you render it in the cloud. Cloud rendering works. You can get tremendous graphics and then just stream it down. Latency of less than 10 milliseconds. How are we doing? You good? Did I screw up? I'm sure it was my fault. See, you learn once you're married that anything that goes wrong is automatically your fault. and so, you know, just I know that. I have 8 children, and they are really very, very interesting in that they've all become quite creative. And how do you do that? It turns out that creativity is really about breaking rules to some extent. All the truly creative people that I know are kind of hackers, kind of have this attitude of messing with people a little bit. Because what you really have to do is you have to mess with people to change them. So have a little bit of irreverence going on. It's also very good to have a tech team to support you. Let's talk for a minute about the mesh between story and game. When it started, story, you'd see a story, and then it'd stop, and then it was game. I always thought that was kind of lame, you know? And pretty soon you just fast forward past the story and get right into the game. But I think that I've seen lately a tighter and tighter integration into a game that really makes it work. One of my sons is actually working on a movie. It's an hour-and-a-half movie in which the theater holds 100 people, all of which have a control, and everybody has to participate in order to save the princess. Now, of course, the story isn't that unique. Evil princess, or evil queen, banishes the princess, and it moves forward from there. There we go. So, Google Glasses, one of the next gaming platforms, going to be really important. You know, I can assure you that most of you will not look that good wearing those. But we can hope. Then the world starts to look like this. Which, digest it for a little bit. This is a brave new world. But, you know, it can work. It's going to do overlays so that whenever you see somebody or product, you'll be able to pull as much information down as you want. You will be able to go to a cocktail party and know as much about somebody as you can, just based on what's available. Facial recognition, search the web, all their public information is now. So you can find out that, there are people in the cocktail party that are jerks, and you don't have to talk to them to find that out. And you can find some really interesting people. Then there's this one. This is called the Oculus Rift, and it is, I think, going to do some interesting things. Now, augmented reality or artificial reality has failed in the past because of two things. It makes you sick. Now, very few products have been successful if their prime outcome is to make you sick. Of course, I can think of a couple of restaurants that violate that principle, but anyway. This has got a guy named John Carmack. If you haven't heard that name, John Carmack is the guy who did all the heavy coding for Doom, which took a relatively crappy computer. PCs in those days were running at a few megahertz and was able to do Doom. He's doing the type code for this. Well, it turns out that if you can get rid of latency, many people believe that you can get to the point where it won't make you sick anymore. Develop for this item. I think it's going to be massively big. And they're looking for developers right now. I think that micro mesh networks are going to be important. Now, what really is a micro mesh network? It's your smartphone, what have you, but basically being able to set up a gaming network, a competition, in less than 3 seconds. So that you can be in a subway car, you can be in a bus, you can be walking down the street, and you can engage in competitive gameplay almost immediately. There are several people that are working on this, but I think that it'll be really an important area. Games for help. You heard of the Fuel Band? Turns out that there are some interesting gaming elements to people and exercise and physical training. And like my wife, she wears a Fuel Band. And if she hasn't gotten to a certain level by the time it's ready for bed, she goes out and runs around the block. Now she's a little loony, but you have to be married to me. But it's one of those things where she's really, passionate about this kind of thing. Well, imagine how much better it would be, and it just basically measures motion through space. But think about how much better it'd be if it could measure whether you were lifting things, whether you were standing on a foot, all kinds of fun stuff like that. Now the big one, however, is education. I am going to tell you guys a secret that I don't want you to tell anybody else. Video games are addictive. Once I get you, I got you forever. The first one is free. I actually think that we are going to be able to make education as addictive as video games. I believe that the future is going to allow schools, individuals, lifelong learners to learn 100% of your high school curriculum, 4 years of high school, in less than 6 months. Zero boredom, 100% retention, a real change so that you can spend all the time you save on projects. Like, how many of you have heard of Unity? Programming language? Okay. You all should spend half an hour a day learning Unity. If you spend a half hour a day in 1 month, you will have produced a video game that you can download to the iTunes store and somebody will buy it. The person who buys it may be an idiot, but they'll buy it anyway. Now, understand that Unity is a powerful tool right now. Like, I'm recommending it to, I think that every high school student should know Unity. Actually, I think junior high school, maybe even some elementary. Because once you learn how to program, all of a sudden, the world kind of opens up to you. And to convert from being a game player, you guys have all the as game players, you have all the skills. All you have to do is turn around and turn yourself into a game designer. You might be able to make some money. Now, everybody who says, yeah, but schools aren't going to adopt anything about learning, well, it turns out that they will, because we're in the middle, worldwide, of a perfect storm. And the perfect storm is cheap hardware, robust networks, brain science. And it turns out that the reason that video games are so addictive is that it's based on brain science. That if you are challenged right to the edge of your capability, you think it's fun. That's why you have to level up, because the old, think how boring it'd be if you had to play the first level over and over and over again. What you really want to be able to do is constantly increase your skill on that particular game, and you keep it fun. Ten times faster. This is the attention curve of a typical classroom. This is what I wanted to point out. There's this thing called flow. And online you can see TED Talks about what it is for perfect happiness. Not perfect learning, not perfect happiness. And it turns out that when you're playing a video game, you are as close to being in the state of flow as you can get, which says there's perfectly happy. So you're right between the hard and the soft. Not too hard, not too easy. Just right. Kind of like the Goldilocks point. That works. So think about doing this. You do thalamic engagement. This is another big secret of learning. And anything that you do, act, react, make it happen. But also, this is the other thing. Be enthusiastic. When you lose a game of chess, you set the pieces up and you play again. If you haven't failed 6 times by the time you're 20, you're not you're not trying. You don't try to fail, but if you haven't failed, it means you haven't been going for it. You've been sitting back, messing around. Quit messing around. Really make a pathway and do wonderful things. Make the world a great place. Become an entrepreneur and build your brain. You want to be creative, and this isn't the way to do it. You build your brain with experiences and try a lot of things. This will constantly make it happen for you. Okay. I've got my book coming out, Finding the Next Steve Jobs. It's a book about how to find creatives, how to make them productive. But the real key is doing a lot of things. Your company needs to do a lot of things and make products that make the world just a little bit better every time. What I want to do and leave you with is we have a world that is really needing more intensity. A friend of mine once said, "How many days do you remember in your life?" And do this. Write down and number them, how many days you can remember. A particular birthday, particular Christmas, particular school teacher. You would be surprised how few it is. Most people can only remember about 2% of their life. That means that 98% of your life is gray. Think about it. So write it down and start to ask yourself, what can I do on this particular day to make it memorable? What you're doing by making it memorable is you're building your brain. Turns out that our brains can be exercised and you can increase your IQ by just doing a lot of different things. Habits kill your brain cells. Doing different things build your brain cells. So, do different things. Learn Tai Chi. Travel. Go to different parts of the state, different parts of the city. Not places that you want to get mugged, but you can go there. Anyway, and be intense. Let's see, what else do we have here? When you look at your life, think games. Games are very, very powerful structures because you have control of all the rules, all the inputs, all the outputs. And when you do that, you make the world a better place because you can now idealize a world and people see it, they can understand it. This is about communication, your vision to everyone else's. The other trick about this is redefine failure. Every time you try a project, and you think you failed, did you? Maybe you learned enough about projects or about this particular area that will keep you from making a decision later, or a mistake later. Let me tell you some really big mistakes I've made in my life. I had a chance to own 1/3 of Apple Computer for $50,000. And I said no. That was a mistake. But, you know, time moves on. I, at one time, fell in love with one of the companies I was working on, which is a robotics company. And they had little guys that would run around, and it was supposed to be the most charming household robot you had. But I couldn't get it to be noisy music. You know, like when you do a blue screen of death with a computer, nobody gets hurt. If you have a 50-pound robot going full speed and your computer crashes, all of your collision avoidance and all your safety stuff goes away. It's kind of a bad thing to have a 50-pound robot go crashing down a set of stairs. Lost $20 million on that one. But the biggest thing that you need to think about, you can think toys. Let's see, I need one more click here. I'm stuck there. Must want me to talk about toys. Toys, when you're inventing something, think about toys. Did you know that the automobile, when it was first designed, was thought of as a toy? The telephone was thought of as a toy. The airplane, thought of as a toy. Almost all things that ultimately become utilities start their life as a toy. And that becomes a very, very important thing to clear your mind about. This is really funny. Let me try this. Nope, it's stuck. Well, anyway, we'll think toys for a while. I think that the world is yours. I'd love to be your guys' age again. The best video game is yet to be designed. One of you sitting here might just well design it. How would you like to own World of Warcraft? Have 1 million people pay you $19 a month. That'd feel good. But you know, the most important thing, believe it or not, it's not the money. Yeah, you want to be able to live well, but at the same time, to feel really like you've accomplished something, that you've made the world a better place. That's really where the happiness comes from. And so, I guess I'd want to leave with you the idea that live a full life, invent, take risks, make the world a better place, be active, be enthusiastic. If you ever think that the reason that you are not successful, that if it's somebody else's problem, somebody else's fault, that you somehow have been born to the wrong parents, born in the wrong country, that it's not your fault, get rid of that idea as fast as possible. You have 100% control of your life, and for everyone who can say, I don't have this and I don't have that, and I didn't have this benefit, I will show you somebody who had less, a lot less, and achieved more. So it's in your hands to do with your life whatever you want. Just make it happen. Thank you very much.